Ordered discharged after he confronted an alleged child rapist in Afghanistan, has learned that the Army has denied his appeal. Last month, the Kelly File reported on Sergeant First Class Charles Martland and his fight to continue serving his country after he and his team leader got in trouble for striking an Afghan police commander accused of raping a young boy and then beating up the child's mother. Trace Gallagher live in our West Coast newsroom with the very latest. Trace?
And Megan, the memo sent to Sergeant First Class Charles Martland says that his appeal to remain in the Army is denied because there is no new evidence. But it's the original evidence that has made this story so controversial. In 2011, Martland, a decorated Green Beret, was helping train Afghan police officers in the Kunduz province when a woman came into their camp claiming one of the Afghan police commanders had repeatedly raped her 12-year-old son and badly beaten her. Sergeant Martland and his teammate, Captain Daniel Quinn, confronted the Afghan police commander, and Captain Quinn told the Kelly File the police commander confessed. Listen.
Then he started laughing. Once we described how atrocious this was and how disparaging this was, he started laughing in our face and just shrugged his shoulders almost as if to say, you know, it's no big deal.
Quinn, who accepted the Army's dismissal, then acknowledges that he and Sergeant Martland lost their tempers and threw the police commander to the ground. It was that physical altercation that got the soldiers in trouble. Even though U.S. soldiers are not required to report cases of child abuse in Afghanistan, today the Department of Defense strongly disputed reports that members of the military had been told to look the other way. Listen.
There is no policy in place that directs any U.S. military or government personnel overseas to ignore human rights abuses. On the contrary, we monitor such atrocities closely and have continually stood up for those who have suffered exploitation.
Now, Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter is outraged by the soldiers' removal and is pressing Defense Secretary Ash Carter to reverse the decision. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now in a Kelly File exclusive, Captain Daniel Quinn. He's a former Army captain and teammate of Sergeant Martland, and Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter, who has been fighting to keep Martland in the Army. Thank you both for being back with me. Let me start with you, Captain Quinn. Sure. This is unbelievable. I mean, so he's done. The Army has sided essentially with the Afghan child rapist.
It's correct. It's I mean, it's a travesty, not just to Charles, but to his wife, to his two kids. Charles was born to be a soldier. He did it better than anyone I've ever worked with. And it's terrible, not just for him and his family, but for our country as well.
What do you, go ahead.
All he wants to do is continue to serve our country with distinction, just like he's done for the last 11 years, and the Army is refusing to let him do that. It's a disservice to him, his family, and to everyone that's worked with him, for him, and that knows him. What
do you make of this statement we just heard? There's no policy in place to ignore human rights violations, none at all.
I mean, that's not necessarily true, because we had, as we've discussed, there's been 3 previous cases of sexual assault. Charles and I reported each one up our chain of command, and what their policy is that we have to go through the local government of Afghanistan. So in our case, we went through the local government 3 times, and all 3 times it was basically met with indifference.
They don't care.
Exactly. So I mean,
they don't care. These Afghan commanders are raping children, and this is somehow acceptable over there, and they expect the American commanders to say, all right, no problem.
Yes, and then we're just told continually you have to go through the local government, and the last time we did that, a 14-year-old girl was raped in a field, and her rapist was found guilty, sentenced to 1 day in jail, and then when he was released from jail, she was forced to marry him because she was no longer a virgin. It was now tainted and was unacceptable to be married to anybody else.
I don't get it, Congressman Hunter. I don't get it. I don't get why the Afghans are going to do what they're going to do. We're not going to change Afghan culture, I suppose. However, we are who we are. And these guys sounded like they're asking them to sacrifice all they stand for in order to serve their country over there.
Yeah, imagine this too. You're a 20-year-old kid. You went over and you're serving your nation, and on your U.S. base, you actually see child rapists and pedophiles and hear the screams of little boys at night, and you're told it's an Afghan criminal issue. The DOD's statement today is pure lawyer speak. You're a lawyer. Of course, there's no policy like they said, but they were allowing this to happen because I don't know if they don't want to offend the wrong people. There is a shameful lack of leadership and morality in the Army, and you know, frankly, I can't get anywhere on this issue, even in the Armed Services Committee.
I mean, who can reverse it? Who can reverse it? Who can get Martland back in?
the Secretary of the Army or the Secretary of Defense. The problem is the Secretary of the Army is a former congressman who's buddies with half of my colleagues on Capitol Hill.
Why wouldn't
they aren't
they
going
want
to get
this?
after him.
Why
He's
are they
retiring in a
against
few
him?
months anyway.
Why?
So I mean, well, because they're all chummy. They're all buddies. We've been bringing this up, Megan. This has been 3 or 4 months now. This Martland case has exposed that there have been hundreds of soldiers and Marines now exposed to these child rapists on their bases. This isn't like out with Martland and Danny Quinn alone and unafraid in these small provinces. This was happening on U.S. bases where you had hundreds, if not thousands, of U.S. military personnel. So this has now been allowed by the U.S. government, and instead of stopping this, and the Army saying, hang on, we're going to do a common sense test, let Sergeant First Class Martland stay in, we're going to stop this. They aren't doing that.
No, they're
saying,
they've chosen a different
we're gonna use
side,
lawyer speak, and we're going to kick him out anyway. We don't care
Captain
what the right
Quinn,
thing to do is.
I gotta
do you
go.
want your son or daughter serving in the Army?
I gotta
mean,
go,
do you
but
want your son or daughter to serve an institution who says pedophilia and child rape is okay as long as it's the custom of the land and it's a criminal case for them? Don't worry about it. That's nonsense. We go overseas
I gotta go.
to fight for our principles.
I don't think I got to ask you, Captain Quinn, before we go.
Sure.
How is your friend? Is he Captain Martland?
I mean, you know, first of all, he's very thankful for all the support he's received from the whole country. It's humbling for both him and I. We really appreciate it, and you know, he's doing right. He's obviously definitely broken today from the news, but he's going to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting, and Congressman Hunter's going to keep fighting. And we just ask America to keep helping Congressman Hunter out. Write to him, write your congressman, and let's get Charles to stay in the Army.
Thank you, guys. Thank you both.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it.
All the best.
Americans is 6.5.